Ready to unlock some next-level productivity.
I love it.
Today, we are diving deep into the world of habits. We'll be uncovering how those small tweaks to our routines can lead to some seriously impressive results.
It's incredible how these seemingly insignificant changes to our daily routines can have a ripple effect, impacting everything from our focus and productivity to our overall well-being.
Yeah. And judging by this stack of research you've shared with me, we're about to unlock some seriously practical insights. We're talking micro breaks, habit stacking.
Oh, and the science of when to have your morning coffee for that maximum impact.
Okay, I am all ears on that one. But first, let's start with something that seems so simple, yet so many of us struggle with: taking breaks. I mean, we know it's good for us, but what's the science behind it? What's actually happening in our brains when we take a few minutes to step away from work?
You're right, we know we should be taking breaks throughout the day, but the science behind WHY, it's so important. That is fascinating. You see, our energy levels naturally fluctuate throughout the day in these cycles called ultradian rhythms.
Ultradian rhythms. Okay, break that down for us. What exactly does that mean?
So basically, it means that as humans, we're not meant to operate at this constant, unwavering level of energy for hours on end. Instead, our bodies and brains actually thrive on these natural peaks and dips in energy. Think of it like waves crashing on the shore. There's this rhythm, a natural flow.
Okay, I like that analogy. So instead of fighting against these waves, we should be learning to ride them.
Exactly. Ignoring these natural rhythms is like trying to swim upstream. You might eventually get to where you're going, but it'll take way more effort, and let's be honest, you're going to end up feeling completely burned out.
That makes a lot of sense. And so this is where strategically placed micro breaks come into play.
Precisely. Micro breaks are like those mini surf breaks we take to come back to shore, allowing us to rest and recharge before catching that next wave of energy. And get this, research from the American Journal of Industrial Medicine has actually shown that these regular micro breaks can significantly reduce our risk of musculoskeletal disorders. You know, those aches and pains so many of us get from sitting for too long.
So no more excuses about not having time for breaks. Those few minutes here and there could actually save us from a world of discomfort later on. But how short are we really talking here? Is there some magic micro break formula?
You know, it's interesting. It's highly personal. So some people find a lot of success with the 28-2 protocol, which suggests 20 minutes of sitting, followed by 8 minutes of standing, and then just 2 minutes of actual movement.
Oh, and then there's the Pomodoro technique, right? That's a popular one.
Yes. The Pomodoro technique is great too. It follows a more structured approach with 25-minute work intervals and then a 5-minute break.
Yeah, I've actually used the Pomodoro technique before. And there's something about that built-in timer that just really helps me to stay on track. Like, my brain knows that break is coming, so that it's almost more willing to buckle down and focus in the meantime.
It's true. That's the power of working with your natural tendencies rather than against them.
I love that.
Yeah.
So simple, but brilliant. And these breaks don't really even have to be anything elaborate. It sounds like even just standing up to stretch for a bit, walking around the office, or just looking away from our computer screens for a few minutes.
Yeah, even just shifting your focus to something other than your screen can make a huge difference.
All of those things can work wonders for our focus and energy.
Exactly. It's like hitting the reset button on our brains throughout the day.
Love it. And this all ties back to the idea of working with our natural rhythms. But let's talk about something that can really throw those rhythms out of whack. Constant screen time.
Oh, I know it.
Digital detox is such a hot topic these days. But how does it all fit into this whole productivity puzzle?
It's not just a buzzword, though. Digital detox is absolutely essential for managing our energy and mental well-being, especially in a world where our devices are constantly vying for our attention. Remember those ultradian rhythms we talked about? Well, constant notifications and that magnetic pull of endlessly scrolling can really disrupt those natural peaks and dips, ultimately leaving us feeling mentally drained.
It's like our brains never get a chance to truly unplug and recharge.
Exactly. And it affects more than just our focus and productivity, too. That blue light that's emitted from our screens can actually interfere with our sleep by messing with our melatonin production.
Oh, right, melatonin. And that's where this idea of a digital sunset comes in.
You got it.
Tell me more about this digital sunset. I'm intrigued.
It's actually super simple but very powerful. Basically, by powering down your devices at least an hour before bed, you're allowing your body to wind down naturally and produce melatonin without being interrupted.
So instead of scrolling through our phones late at night, we're aiming for a digital sunset. It sounds like such a small change, but it could have a huge impact on our sleep. right?
Definitely.
But let's be real, going completely off the grid isn't always realistic. What are some other digital detox strategies we can try without having to ditch our devices entirely?
You're right. It's all about finding a balance. Instead of trying to quit cold turkey, try setting some specific tech-free times and zones in your day.
Okay, I like that. So like what would that look like?
Well, for example, you can make meal times phone-free. It's a chance to really be present with whoever you're with. Savor your food.
Oh, and give your brain a break from all the digital stimulation.
Exactly.
I'm definitely guilty of scrolling while I'm eating, even when I'm having dinner with my family. It's such a habit.
Yeah.
But I can totally see how putting my phone away would make those moments so much more meaningful.
Exactly. And what about designating certain areas in your home as completely tech-free? The bedroom is always a good place to start, sending that signal to your brain that it's time to unwind and disconnect.
Instead of scrolling through social media before bed, I could actually read a book
There you go.
or have an actual conversation.
Exactly.
What a concept, right? Okay, so with that in mind, let's switch gears to another fascinating aspect of habit formation: habit stacking. It sounds kind of like we're building this productivity fortress brick by tiny brick.
I like that analogy, and it's true. Habit stacking is a really clever way to build new habits by basically leveraging ones that we already have. Our brains just crave patterns and thrive on routine.
Right.
So when we stack a new habit onto an existing one, it's like we're creating this mental shortcut.
So in a way, we're using our brain's natural wiring to make positive change easier. This is where that whole neural pathway concept comes in, right?
Absolutely. So for example, let's say you already have a solid habit of brushing your teeth every morning.
Which hopefully we all do.
Right. But you could stack a new habit, like drinking a glass of water right after you brush your teeth. Over time, because you're doing those things together, your brain starts to associate those two actions, and it'll become more likely that you'll do both.
So it's like you're telling your brain, okay, we've brushed our teeth, now it's time for that big glass of water. I like it. But I imagine the key here is to start small, right? Like if I tried to overhaul my entire routine overnight, it probably wouldn't go so well.
Exactly. Small steps are key. Don't underestimate the power of small wins. Start by identifying maybe just one or two habits you want to cultivate, and then work on stacking them onto your existing routines. Like, for instance, while your morning coffee is brewing, you could do a quick set of 10 squats or some light stretching.
So simple. Okay, I'm already picturing myself getting my squat on while my coffee brews in the morning. Small steps, big results.
Precisely. And that brings us back to the importance of working with our natural energy cycles, not against them. We've talked about how micro breaks can be super helpful for recharging throughout the day, but what about actually structuring our entire day to align with those natural peaks and dips in energy?
Okay, yes. Tell us more about that. How do we go from simply understanding those ultradian rhythms to actually leveraging them for peak performance?
I think it all starts with awareness.
Okay.
So just paying attention to those natural ebbs and flows throughout the day, like when do you feel the most alert and focused versus when you start hitting that afternoon slump? Just being aware of those patterns is huge.
Yeah.
Jotting down those peak times and low points in a journal or in your phone can help with that.
So you're creating a personalized energy map,
Right.
basically. I love that. But what's next? How do we actually use this newfound awareness to our advantage?
Once you have a better grasp on those natural rhythms, you can start to structure your day accordingly. So for example, if you're a morning person, you can schedule your most demanding tasks, things like writing or creative brainstorming, or even just prepping for that big presentation. You can schedule those for the early hours, and then save the less demanding tasks like responding to emails or running errands for those lower energy periods.
So we're essentially optimizing our productivity by syncing our schedules with our internal clocks. We're working smarter, not harder, which I am always here for. And speaking of optimizing our routines, I have to ask about this miracle morning concept. It sounds intriguing, but also maybe a little intimidating. Is it really possible to transform our lives simply by changing how we start our days?
It sounds more complicated than it is. The Miracle Morning is basically a framework for creating a morning routine that sets you up for success, both mentally and physically. It's based on this acronym, SAVERS, which stands for Silence, Affirmations, Visualization, Exercise, Reading, and Scribing.
Okay, that does sound like a lot to squeeze into those precious morning hours.
And you don't have to do it all at once. You can start by just incorporating one or two practices that really resonate with you, and then gradually add more as you feel ready. And remember, the goal here is to create a routine that energizes you, not one that stresses you out. And there are two practices in particular that tie in really well with everything else we've been talking about: silence and exercise.
Silence and exercise. Okay, those do seem particularly relevant to our conversation about boosting energy and focus. So let's unpack those a bit. What makes them such key parts of a solid morning routine?
Well, even just a few minutes of silence at the start of your day can be incredibly grounding. Whether that's taking a few moments to meditate, doing some deep breathing exercises, or even just sitting quietly with that first cup of coffee, just focusing on being present in the moment. It allows your mind to fully wake up and kind of sets this calm, centered tone for the day ahead.
Yeah, and that's got to be especially helpful for those of us who tend to wake up with like a million thoughts already running through our minds.
Oh, absolutely. It's like hitting the pause button before the chaos of the day begins.
I love that. And what about exercise? I know we talked earlier about incorporating little bits of movement into our mornings,
Yeah.
but how does exercise specifically fit into this miracle morning framework?
Well, it's not just about the physical benefits, although those are obviously important too. But when we start our day with even just a little bit of exercise, we're essentially kickstarting our metabolism and we're giving those energy levels a totally natural boost. And that can have this domino effect throughout your day, leading to feeling more alert and focused, and improved mood, and even better sleep.
So we're not talking about needing to like run a marathon before breakfast or anything, right? With just a brisk walk, some yoga stretches, even just a few jumping jacks, would those do the trick?
Absolutely. The most important thing is to find something that you enjoy doing and that you can realistically fit into your schedule. And then it's all about consistency. Even just committing to 10 minutes of exercise each morning can have a really significant impact on your energy levels and your overall well-being.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. We've talked about so much, from those ultradian rhythms and the importance of micro breaks to the power of habit stacking and how we can optimize our morning routines to set ourselves up for success. But if we had to break it all down to just one key takeaway, what would it be? What would you say is the most important thing for our listeners to remember?
Honestly, I think the most important takeaway here is that creating a healthier and more productive life, it's not about trying to achieve some sort of perfect level of productivity or even adhering to some rigid set of rules. It's about understanding your natural rhythms, your energy patterns, and your own unique needs and preferences, and then designing a lifestyle that aligns with all of those things.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's really about each of us embarking on our own personalized journey of self-discovery.
Exactly. Embrace experimentation. Be curious about what works best for you. And maybe most importantly, be kind to yourself throughout the process. Building these healthy habits, it takes time, it takes effort, and there are going to be setbacks along the way.
It's about progress over perfection, for sure. And it's definitely a message I can get behind.
This has been such a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for diving into all of this with me.
It's been my pleasure.
And for everyone listening, remember, the journey to a more productive, more fulfilling you, it all starts with a single step. So what small change are you going to commit to today? Until next time, deep divers, keep exploring, keep experimenting, and keep striving to become the best versions of yourselves.